Imagine being the parent of a child with special needs. Your child is in full-time special education classes. These classes you feel are great, but deep down, you think that your child is missing out on something. You wish that your child could be included in general education classes, either partially or full-time. Your child's IEP states otherwise. The school feels that your child would benefit better from only special education classes. The school states that by including your child, it would disrupt the learning of the other children, plus the teacher isn't qualified to teach your student. You wish desperately that your child could be fully or even partially included in general education classes. Inclusion is a philosophy that states all individuals, regardless of ability, should participate within the same environment with the necessary support and individualized attention. Inclusion is more than simply placing individuals together. It's a belief that all individuals belong and are valued. I already knew that inclusion is something that many parents of students with special needs fight for, but rarely fully attain. I know this from years and years of listening to my mom talking about my younger sister's IEP, also known as an individualized education program. There was a year that she was allowed to be fully included and got to experience second grade with all of her peers. Later on, though, she was pulled out, but she didn't do much better in her special education class that year either. Yes, it is true that special education classes are somewhat necessary and can provide beneficial one-on-one specialized education, but these classes can also be somewhat isolated. According to a student from the Including Samuel documentary, she says, "It might be easier to accept students with different disabilities or learning impairments if we weren't separated all the time. It would be cool if we got to be in the same class together." So this is an easy fix, right? Well, not exactly, but it can be done. There are many factors that go into setting up an inclusive class, but many teachers are either too afraid, don't have the proper funding, or are just overwhelmed at the sheer thought. There is a lot that a teacher has to plan already, and many teachers feel that by allowing to have more students come to their class, that their other students will, quote, suffer. It's very important to identify what you can do as a classroom teacher to make your own classroom more appropriate for a fully inclusive setting. So what I want to know is, how exactly does full inclusion affect the students involved? I also want to know, what exactly do I need to do to make sure that my classroom provides the least restrictive environment for all my students? Many schools fear that by fully including students with incredibly diverse learning disabilities, that it will impair the other students in a general education class. As I started researching, I found an article titled Including Other Kids by Debbie Staub. She asked the question, will non-disabled children receive less attention and time from their teacher? So far, these studies have shown no slowdown in non-disabled children's learning in inclusive classrooms. She also mentions how there's a negative stigma around inclusion because many parents and even some educators fear that their class will not get the attention they need or feel that the class will be disrupted. Furthermore, Staub quotes, "Surveys conducted with parents and teachers involved in inclusive settings generally show that they see no harm to the non-disabled children and that they will have positive opinions about inclusion." Already there are studies and surveys that support the fact that no matter what the learning disability, all students will be better off all together in one classroom. I decided to see if other articles held true to what Staub was saying. I found a boldly titled article titled Inclusion, the Right Thing for All Students by Cheryl Jorgensen. One of the main features of this article is Jorgensen's knowledge of the topic of inclusion. She is a member with the National Center on Inclusive Education at the Institute of Disability at the University of New Hampshire. Jorgensen's main point in this article is to show that inclusion has worked and will continue to work as long as people give it a chance to work. She wants people to know that just as important as academic outcomes are the attitudes and values that all students learn when they are educated together. In total, she sees no long-term negative effects. Furthermore, as the recent WNYC story states, the achievement of students without disabilities is not compromised by the presence of students with disabilities in their classrooms. Some studies even show that implementing inclusion on a school-wide basis improves achievement for all students. Both articles cite that once full inclusion is implemented in the classroom, that the students in the classroom will generally become more accepting and friendly as time goes on. Also, the students that are being included will most likely receive a boost in their self-esteem because of the opportunities to try things that maybe they wouldn't have had the chance to in their other classes. So far, I've learned that full inclusion is actually pretty great for all students involved, but it is still so rare to actually find it in practice. So why is full inclusion still such a taboo topic? After my interview with Robin Reddy, an educational advocate for students with special needs, I learned that many teachers fear that they are not qualified enough to attend to every student. They might be scared that a student may have a medical emergency or a meltdown that they aren't fully prepared for. That is also why, according to Dan Habib from the Including Samuel documentary, it is important to have specialists work with you all the time. Teachers need to know that they are not alone. There are many different resources available at each school to not only help the child, but to help the teacher as well. People like reading specialists and paraprofessionals are there to help out and provide the necessary support when needed. Now that I know more about the effects of full inclusion, this got me thinking about how I can make my own classroom an effective model for full inclusion. Teachers need to know that there are many different learning models and strategies that they can use. I found a great article titled "Creating a Warm and Inclusive Classroom Environment, Planning for All Children to Feel Welcome" by Buchholz. In her article, Buchholz notes many different strategies to use in your class to make it more inviting and welcoming for all students. One of the biggest things that I noted was the information on class meetings. Not only would class meetings be great to introduce your class to the new student, but it would also be a great way to encourage problem solving throughout the entire year. Class meetings also provide a sense of community throughout that students of all learning levels can enjoy. Buchholz also notes an important learning model that teachers can implement, titled the Self-Determined Learning Model of Instruction. This method of problem solving is sort of like a drawn-out KWL chart. All students will benefit from using this. This teaching model is something that educators can use to help students set educational and learning goals for themselves, develop plans to reach those goals, and monitor their progress towards those same goals. Going back to my email interview with Robin Reddy, she says it's important to get to know all of your students. Finding out that they like to hold something in their hand and allowing them to do that can greatly help you when you're teaching a lesson. She also states that teachers must implement differentiated instruction strategies, utilize small group instruction time, create learning centers, and facilitate social awareness through empathy training, otherwise known as curriculum, in order to have a smooth running classroom. Reddy reiterated that teachers who embrace diversity, learning differences in styles, cultural, religious, etc., are able to facilitate building a sense of belonging through actions of both teachers and students, lessons, conflict resolution, and day-to-day teaching moments, all provide opportunity to facilitate a greater understanding of differences, therefore building a classroom environment of belonging for each individual. Based on the information I have gathered, I plan to use what I learned from this research to provide the best possible inclusive classroom that welcomes all students. I will continue to research more to make myself more knowledgeable on this subject matter. Inclusion is still something that many parents have to fight for in order to fully attain, and I hope that by showing others that full inclusion is not that difficult to implement, that I will increase the confidence in other teachers to explore full inclusion in their own classrooms.